Okay, so now we have the doggo drawn, which is good because we lost the real doggo in the background. Nala got upset because there was a fly. I killed the fly. Still, she left and she won't come back, but that's okay. Here is the completed dog with the different custom shapes. So just look at this code. All the different areas are separated into different sections that are labeled with these comments at the top. And then down past the top, bottom jaw, here at the bottom, the eye and the pupil have specified fills and strokes. So the eye is going to have a white fill and a black stroke. And the pupil, and these are both just circles, the pupil is going to have a black fill. So everything else will be set with a color declaration at the top. Right now it's just a default white with a black outline. And as you're choosing colors, you might want to check out something like a palette website. This is colorlovers.com, and color spelled in British English with a U. There's a link to it in the live schedule, our Google Sheets. So, and this gives you a list of a bunch of different palettes. So I pulled a yellow from that palette because I thought it was kind of nice. You can also use a color picker online. So this here is the RGB for that color. Go back to the web editor. So now if I make all the fill be this RGB, there. But I actually don't want those strokes. So I'll go no stroke. And there it is. It's a little closer to what the pepper will look like. I'll change the background to make it darker. Something like that. Now to auto align. What was the shortcut to auto align? Shift tab? Yes. So that auto align my code right there. Awesome. So it's going to look something closer to this. For now, I am just going to comment out this fill and stroke, and I'll also title it Doggo Fur Colors. And then I'll comment all of that out. This will be easier to work with. Make the background a little more moderate again. Okay. Now, in looking at this, we want the tail and the jaws to rotate around here. So in rotating a shape, well, let's see what happens if we just try to rotate this dog tail. And in the P5 documentation, let's see, reference, go Command F to search the page for rotate. So to rotate something, you simply go rotate, and then by default, it is in radians. I'm going to change it to degrees. Go back here. And I'm going to change that at the top of the page to make sure all the rotations know that the angle mode is degrees. Okay, so down here, I'm going to rotate the doggo tail. Go rotate. Let's try 30 degrees and run it. Whoa, whoa. So what's going on here? So it turns out if you just type rotate, it's going to rotate the whole canvas around the 0, 0 axis at the top. So it's literally just treating the canvas like a piece of paper. And normally at 0, 0 here, it'll draw stuff from here. And then if you rotate it, it's kind of just like it's rotating the whole grid, but then drawing everything in the same place. I don't know if that totally makes sense here. Let's just rotate it by like 10 degrees and see if, yeah, so you can see how it's just rotating it. And because you're rotating on this line 23 of code, it's going to apply to all the other code below that. So, I mean, what we need it to do is instead of rotating around this axis, we need it to rotate around this axis. So in order to do that, we will use something called translate. And I think to illustrate it, it'll be easier to do it with something not these shapes. So oops, keep on trying to do reload the page instead of just executing or running the script, which is Command or Control Enter. Okay, so let's do this as an example with, well, I wanted to put a bone up here, so let's do something that could be the equivalent of a bone. So a rectangle. So let's make a rectangle that is at maybe the top up here. So it can be at width times 0.6 and height times 0.2, and then it can have a width and a height of blah, 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 width times, I'm just guessing here. It's much easier when you have that grid start up. Okay, width and a height, and width times 0.1. Okay, let's see what it looks like. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, sure, a dog bone. I'm going to make it a little skinnier, 0.08. There's only one. Okay, so eventually this will be a dog bone, and I'll have little bone ends on it. Okay, so if I wanted to rotate this and adjust this, and I want it to rotate around this different point. Okay, so there's two things that are going on. First of all, we want to rotate this and just this. And then we want to have it rotate around this point. So let's first look at how to rotate one thing and just that one thing. So we know rotate, and if we go rotate 30, great. That will rotate everything. I wonder what would happen if now here we go rotate -30. So rotate it 30, draw this rectangle, and then rotate it back. I'm not sure what was happening there. Okay. Well, it turns out that you can use this thing called push and pop. So what push and pop do is that if you're going to apply a translation, like a rotation or a translation, which is where you would shift the anchor point, and we'll do that next, you can isolate that between two functions called push and pop. And to auto-align, Shift-Tab, beautiful. So what push and pop does is it's saying like, hey, just push out of this code, rotate it, and then once you pop back in, just reset that rotation. So let's see if this works. Oh wait, where did our rectangle go? Hey, it's off the page. What is going on here? Okay, I'm just going to comment these out to make sure. Okay, there's a rectangle. Oh, it might be rotating and then hiding behind this. That's why. So it was rotating, and because it was drawn before the body, it was hiding behind it. So here, let's just redo that. Okay, now it's disappeared, but turns out it is under this body. It's a cool way we can see that. So I'm going to re-enable this dog fur color. So now that dog is this color. Oop, and there's the corner of it. And if you add in a fourth parameter to an RGB value, it'll be transparency. So if I make this 100, I think transparency is also from 0 to 255. And then reload that there. Now that color is transparent, and we can see the dog tail underneath it. Okay, but still there's this issue. Even though we got the push and the pop to work, so we pushed it, rotate it, popped out of that, and then everything else was able to draw outside of this rotation we applied. But it's not rotating around the anchor point right here. It's rotating around this corner of the canvas. So you can use something called translate. So normally P5 draws with this as the 0, 0 point of the canvas. If you apply a rotation, it's like rotating everything relative to this 0, 0 point. So that's what we saw when everything kind of got displaced with just one rotation. Now, translation is the equivalent of saying, hey, 0, 0 is not here anymore. Let's set 0, 0 to be here. Now when we draw a circle around point 0, 0, it'll be right here. And if we rotate, it's going to rotate around this point. And with push and pop, it's the equivalent of like, so normally we're starting here. Hey, push, translate over here. Cool. Draw something over here with this as 0, 0. Cool. Then when you hit pop, it'll pop you back to the coordinate system beginning at 0, 0 here. Okay, so let's look at an example of that. Okay, so now starting from scratch. We want to draw the dog bone here, and we want it to rotate around an anchor point that's in the middle of the bone instead of rotating around this top left corner of the screen. So the first thing we're going to do is set up our push and pop zone. So this will allow us to make rotations and translations that apply just to the code inside here. And why don't we go ahead and draw a rectangle and make it at the coordinate 0, 0. And have the width and the height be, what was it before? Width times 0.3. No, width times height 3, and then the height times 0.08. That's what I have written down over there. Okay. So now we're drawing a rectangle, and it's at the top of the corner of the page, and this is a 0, 0 point. Now, if we translate the 0, 0 point, so let's translate it, and what did we do last time? We had the start point be at width times 0.6, and height times 0.2. Okay, so now we are within this push and pop zone, translating the 0, 0 point here, and then drawing a rectangle at 0, 0, which is now right over here. Cool. So this rectangle being drawn at 0, 0 is at this 0, 0 here. And now if we're to rotate, and I'm applying this rotation before we draw the rectangle, if we are to rotate 30 degrees, it's going to rotate around this point of the rectangle. Now, what if we want the rectangle to rotate around its center? So by default, rectangles are drawn in corner mode, meaning that the coordinates that you put in are for the top corner. And circles in P5 by default are drawn from center mode. So that coordinate you put in is in the center of the circle or ellipse. But you can switch those around back and forth. So instead of having the rectangle be in corner mode, we can change the rectangle mode to center. And now this 0, 0 coordinate should be appearing in the middle of this bone to be. And if we rotate it, it's now going to rotate around the center. This is exciting because now when the dog gets happy, the bone can rotate above its head. Wonderful. And lastly, I'm just going to show you an example of that circle or the corner mode and the center mode because I think it's important. So if we draw, let's say, an ellipse, and let's just make it at 100, 100, and let's make it have 50 by 50 width and height. So, it's hiding behind that little tail. It's kind of cute. Okay, let's change it to 20, 20. Now it's going to be kind of off the screen, but that's fine. And if we draw a rectangle with exactly the same coordinates. Oh, and by the way, if you have a line highlighted and you want to duplicate it, you can hit Shift-Command-D or Shift-Control-D, and that will just duplicate that line. I think if your cursor, too, is at the end of the line, then it will duplicate it and put it in the line below. So instead of that being an ellipse, I'm going to change it to a rect. So now we can see how this corner and center mode plays out. So this ellipse is being drawn around the point 20, 20, which is in the center of the circle. But when you draw a rectangle around the same point, it starts in that corner there. But if you were to change the ellipse mode to corner, because by default it's center, now they should line up, which actually means you don't see the ellipse because it's being hidden by the rectangle. So I just switched those around. There. So now they both are in corner mode. Voila. So I have the bone rotating. And that's where we're at. The push and the pop thing, translate, rotate, is a little confusing to start, but once you practice it, it'll make a lot more sense, and it gives you a lot more flexibility with how shapes are drawn to the screen.